the best thing that we can all do is kind of have not a doomsday perspective, but a crisis plan in place to kind of always think, you can't think of every scenario, but think about if something unexpected happens across your channels, what tools do you have to respond and what is your principles on responding? And I think always best communication leadership is trying to monitor the situation as best you can and stay as proactive as you can with what information you have at the time.
In today's podcast, we interviewed Bridget Burnham with Burn Bright Communications. She works a lot with authors and speakers. She's been in business for 5 years, and she helps people tell their story. She helps them discover their brand and really create the value within their business and the vision that they want to share with the world. She says that you should tell the story, and it's important that the words and the language that you use, that stories sell and facts tell. She helps you understand and stay close to the core values and the core principles of your business. And what message are you trying to get across? And especially in high stakes communication, one little message can be seen or heard by thousands in today's social media world. Check in to this podcast with Bridget Burnham.
My name's Travis Sims, and I am the founder and CEO of AGC Accelerated Global Connections. And this is the AGC Experience.
Hi, friends. Are you ready to connect deeply, feel calm, and find inspiration? Dawn Bennett has been having so much fun meeting with people online and learning how she can help them grow, as well as offering complimentary EFT or tapping classes and personal sessions to clear stress and inspire people to engage with their business by clearing fears. Please head to her Touch Remedies website or call her at 651-401-6131 to register for a free online class to help you move through stress and emotional turmoil to find that inspiration. There, you can also schedule a personal meeting to connect so she can help you grow. She's looking forward to deepening your relationship. Dawn Bennett, Touch Remedies, the science and soul of deepening connection to self, others, and community.
Welcome, guests in our audience here today. You're either watching at home or you're listening at home or in your home office. And I'm super excited that you're checked into the AGC Experience podcast. We have listeners and watchers joining us from all over the world today. And I'm super excited about our guest, Bridget Burnham. Bridget, you've been an AGC Talks speaker. You're also an AGC member and now a podcast guest. I've been watching some of the things that you do on your website, some of the things that you're doing on your social media, and I'm just super excited to have you as a guest here today. Please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and help us meet Bridget.
Sure. So happy to be here, Travis. Thanks so much. I love all the things that AGC is doing, and connecting with all the members virtually now too is awesome. So thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm Bridget Burnham. I founded Burn Bright Communications about 5 years ago, and I am a strategic communications consultant and public relations consultant. So I help businesses tell their story. And I'm really passionate about what I do. I think that it started, back when I was younger, and just, the process of self-discovery as a person and realizing how much of that is tied into communication and being able to express yourself through different modes and channels of communication. And then venturing out as a business owner, having different coaches and guidance as I defined my brand, I really fell in love with the idea of, really putting solid intention and messaging behind your brand, and then strategically going out there and sharing that with the world so you can make an impact. So that's really what I'm passionate about doing. I work with all different kinds of businesses, a lot of technical experts in kind of highly technical fields like engineers and actuaries and things like that, who are really passionate about what they do, but maybe need a little bit of help telling their story and putting some ideas and ways to message out there in the world. I also work with speakers and authors on just trying to take what they're doing already really well and magnifying it out in the world in some creative and innovative ways, and find that, talking to people about what they're really passionate about is what I love doing, and then helping them create around that is just so fun. And I love what I do every day. I'm excited to get up and work with my clients. So feel so blessed and lucky.
Oh, that's awesome. It's interesting. I think we have a lot in common when it is that we just love people. And I love doing this podcast because I get to learn about the person behind the business. I get to know you a little bit better, and just people have stories, and I want to know them, and I want to share them, and I want to help you be seen through networking, and you're doing it through communication. So tell me, I'm just kind of curious. You said you love people telling their story and helping them be discovered. What are some of your favorite ways to do that?
So I really love people we're always trying to move forward, moving our businesses forward faster. And sometimes it just takes taking a couple minutes to reflect and ask yourself some of the questions. And some people like to do that via writing and some people don't, but I find that going through the process of saying, like, what if you were to produce the value of content that you're going to produce and be out there and be of value in the world, what does that look like? So I think that a lot of it is just taking people through different exercises to think about different things that they've done, different things that they are working on, and different visions that they have for the world, and getting those kind of written out and then organized, because I think they're in our heads a lot of times. And when we can express them in different ways and have different I have a lot of fun little exercises I do with people just to get them to say things maybe differently than they had said in the past, or express things differently, or just view the world in a slightly different way and organize it. And the more exercises you do like that, the more, we say it's the simplicity on the far side of complexity. So your message stands out so much more when you've done that deeper work of saying it and then saying it again, and then organizing it a different way, and having it. And the more work you've done like that, the more, when you simplify it, it really makes sense to people. So guiding people through that idea of, yeah, you say you do this for this group of people, but like, let's really look at that a little bit deeper. What does that mean? And how else could you say it? And what are some stories of how you've done that? And what's that moment that lights you up? And, just going back a little bit to take some time to express it in different ways. And from that, where I really like to help is synthesizing that and pulling out the sound bites and saying, oh, you said this, and that is really cool, and that really resonates with me. Like, let's see if that resonates with who your audience is. And then the other piece of that is, as communicators, it's a two-sided thing. So knowing yourself really well and being able to express all those things, but then also, what are some different ways you can get to know your audience a little bit better? And how can you be the expert in them with research and conversation starters and different ways to have those back and forth communication? Because it is always a two-way street with communication, as I know Travis, because you're an expert communicator as well, and I see you do that really well. So
oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I coming from an expert in communications, that's a pretty big endorsement, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. You said a couple things that I want to hit on, and I wrote them down. And you were saying, talk about sharing people's story, and you went into words and how much they matter. I've said this forever. Words matter. Language is important, and I want to reference a story that I've heard years ago that. And I'll summarize it real short and brief for us. But there was no, he wasn't an ice salesman. He was a salesman, like a traveling salesman, and he was in Arizona, and it was like 100 and some degrees. And he looked up behind the cash register, and there was a cardboard sign that said, "Don't forget the ice." So the salesman asked the cash register person, he said, "How's the ice sales?" And the guy was like, "Oh, they're terrible. You would think, as hot as it is, and with this great sign that I have back here, that the ice sales would be through the roof." And the salesperson asked for the sign. They took the sign down, and they wrote on the back of the sign, and said, "Remember the ice." Hung it back up. Comes back through a month later, and the cash register person, the shop owner, says, "What in the world did you do?" "Oh my gosh, our ice sales are through the roof." And the message was, you said, "Don't forget." and it was a double negative. And what do you think that everyone did? They forgot the ice. Everyone forgot the ice. The salesperson just said, I just told them to remember. And what do you think they all did? They remembered to get the ice. And so I love that you said words matter, that language is important when you're telling your story and you're looking at different angles. Are your customers, the people that you're working with, the business, because business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople don't often like to be told what to do. So are they receptive to the advice that you're giving them? Do they understand that we need to look at this at a few different angles?
Yeah, I think people are realizing now more than ever that two things. One being that there's so many opportunities to communicate and they're not all the same. So which opportunities do I pick and how do I align? That's a tougher choice for people. And I think they are looking for direction in that area. And then when you do that, I think it's a process, right? But you realize, okay, I'm choosing this channel and here's my objectives. And maybe I could be doing this better. Maybe there are some better ways to do this given the different channel. I think people are really comfortable a lot of times, or they think they are face to face with a person, but translating those conversations that you're having naturally person to person to a channel can be challenging. And I think people recognize that, like, it's not the same as the opportunity to sit and hear, what do you think? Is this going to offend you if I say this and then I can take it back? You're putting it out there and it starts to feel a little bit more heavy. And then people are kind of, I think in certain situations, it comes real for different people. Like I have this high stakes communication. A lot of times when I work with a client for the first time, it's because they have usually some good news that they want to communicate and they really want to optimize it. They're like, this is my chance. I think I have a media angle here and I want to go out there and do it well. And so we work together on that. But then through that process, realize that there are so many other opportunities, that this, just because you have this one thing, there's also other opportunities to bring your message to a bigger platform. And being open to figuring out what that looks like and being comfortable with it. And I do think that if not advice, necessarily, but coaching and collaborating when you're creating your message is so important, because it's hard to create a message on your own without a sounding board to kind of say, is this making sense? Does this resonate? And it's just a collaborative process. And that's what I love about it the most, is that I don't necessarily have all the answers either, but I have another perspective and I have different tools that I use to run messages through to say, usually we want this and this to happen. Do you feel like this is happening with your communication or not? Or where do we need to make it, like you said, there's some best practices with how you speak in the different languages and teach different models of messaging to have the highest impact in the shortest amount of time with the fewest amount of words, sound bites and that kind of thing. And then there's just the whole process of doing it and running it by someone and doing it again and making sure it's your best foot forward.
Yeah. It's so important, especially if you're a leader, like you said, author, speaker, someone that's in the public eye, and you can instantly either move your credibility up or you can move your credibility down, just with one statement. And so I'm always looking and trying to be careful with, all right, am I saying this in the right way? How will it be translated? What will people feel whenever they hear this message? And it's great to have an outside person looking in, and for businesses to understand that, because today with technology and social media and all those things, your one little statement can just go like wildfire. I mean, used to, it was just the telephone game between person to person, but now that message could reach thousands in minutes. So I'm appreciative of what you do and certainly see the value in what you're creating for your customers.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the impact, the high stakes of seemingly small communications now, and also just trying to grow a team in this kind of age where you can incorporate a lot of people, but you want them to be on your same message, on your same, brand values, all that kind of stuff. So you really need to, just a big thing for me is, if you don't have a documented and kind of organized communication strategy and plan and express what that is, even just in a written form, so you can't bring people along to say, hey, this is what I'm about. This is what I really, and now you can help me pass my message along, or you can be part of my team, but they need to have that, I would say, just like background in all of what you're trying to do and what you're about. And so getting that out and being able to articulate it is so important for that purpose as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to steer the conversation to, you said, you work with some authors and you work with speakers. So I'm curious because I'm a speaker, not yet an author.
Yep.
I see the value in authoring a book, and I think I have a few books in me. I haven't taken the time to write them. It feels a little overwhelming to me. And so I'm curious, do you work with a lot of speakers who want to be authors, or a lot of authors who want to do speaking, vice versa? What kind of advice do you give them?
Sure. Yeah. I think a lot of times that the speaking circuit is filled with people who do have books because they've kind of realized that that is a great kind of model to go forward. But at the same time, a lot of speakers are also working on another business that has, a consulting aspect, or, some other product that they're selling, and they're going out to speak to help promote that. I think that in my mind, anyone who's out there speaking and being a thought leader should be trying to publish on a regular basis. And I say, like, do as I say, not as I do. Sort of do it for other people, but for myself a little bit harder. And so I understand the value in that. But the way that I see people doing that is to kind of find a way to, on the regular, put them together and start to organize them. And that's kind of the first step to starting a book if you don't have one, or the first step to starting your next book that builds on your first book is kind of saying, after my core principles and what I'm about, what is happening in the world that I can relate to that, and what should I be publishing about? What should I be sharing about in relation to my core place where I'm adding value? So if you're a motivational speaker talking to, specifically you've written about, the financial sector or whatever, what's happening now, and what should you be talking about to add value there, and finding a way to do it, whether it's writing or, now it's so much easier to just jump on and do video blogging or something that relates to you. And I think that's the important thing for anyone. And I think typically what I find with authors who are speakers, they're very comfortable writing because they've written their book. And so that's a great way for them to do it. But for other people who maybe aren't as comfortable writing, but have a lot of great thoughts, there's a lot of ways to collaborate with people to get that into whatever format you want. It's just capturing it and organizing it. So I think that the biggest thing is to just find a way that you can be consistent, whether that's with a partner who can help draw things out of you, or a publishing schedule, to kind of keep those thoughts going and keep documenting them so you can have a place to aggregate them and organize.
I like that.
Stay relevant.
That's great advice. I like that a lot. I'm curious because right now, and this will date this podcast a little bit, and it'll probably air in the next month or so anyway. So COVID-19, coronavirus. And I got so many communications from all the people that I do business with, that I have some kind of service of some kind, or have done business with in the past. Have you spent time with your customers formatting any of these type of communications? Was it important to get ahead of it? Wait? What kind of advice do you give to? Do you say, okay, we need to get this out, we need to get it out now? Or we need to wait and watch for a little bit and then form our message? Because I'll just use myself as an example, and I'm not beating myself up on this too hard, but I'm usually one. I've been a pioneer my entire life, and it's like, all right, we're going to get ahead of this. We're going to pivot. We're going to change. We're going to adapt. We're going to adjust. And I immediately went to, we're still meeting, and we're going to elbow bump, right? We're going to elbow bump. But within days, it went from, it's not safe to be meeting. You can't be in large groups. Even with the elbow bump, it wasn't a safe place to do. So then it was like, oh gosh, we got to adjust and adapt again. So I'm curious, because I should have seeked your advice. What advice would you have given me?
Yeah. So I think, everyone's doing the best they can. It's first to remember that, I think it's unprecedented times and unprecedented situation. And we all like to think, the best thing that we can all do is kind of have not a doomsday perspective, but a crisis plan in place to kind of always think, you can't think of every scenario, but think about if something unexpected happens across your channels, what tools do you have to respond, and what is your principles on responding? And I think always best communication leadership is trying to monitor the situation as best you can and stay as proactive as you can with what information you have at the time, and just keeping the channels of communication open to get both pushing things out, but also receiving. Like, I want to know, having feet on the ground, having the people to kind of tell you, what are you thinking, and being able to be in close communication with those people so you can make your best plan forward. But yeah, always, I think, thinking through the best you can with the information you have, gather as much information as you can, put your steps in place, and make sure you're monitoring the situation, consistently. But I think I always err on the side of communication more than less, because people are looking for information. And even if your information is, we're monitoring the situation and here is where we will update it and here's when, then you've covered your bases and people know that you're looking at doing the best you can. And that's all that anyone can ask in situations like this. It's very tough. I think it's very tough to be a communicator on your own when you have so many things. But the one thing that I know is, starting from the inside out, and who's closest to you and what do you need to know from them to be able to make the best decisions. So staying close to your customers and the people that you are in your network, and making sure you're optimizing your network, which is like so huge about, having this group of people around AGC to be able to, those people that you're comfortable with, that to kind of say, here's what I'm thinking. Is this with what you're thinking? Because the more, in this situation especially, different people had different amounts of information based on what they were listening to and where they were and what they were focused on. So using all those to your advantage to try to get the most information that you can. And all you can do then is move forward with the information, the best information you could gather at the time. Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. So communicate more, communicate often. And if you need to adjust your message, just communicate again. Is that, did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, show up authentically, just like always. It's the same principles as, show up authentically with the information you have, and keep leading through it as much as you can. Here's what our plan is. Here's what you need to know. And at the same time, being real about the fact that we all know that everyone's getting all those emails. So at some point in time, it gets a little bit crazy. So if you can streamline it and say, here's my plan, and if you want to follow along with my plan, here's where you can go to get it, so I'm not inundating you. It's that sensitivity to knowing. It's the big thing about being a great communicator, I think, is just you're thinking about yourself and your objectives, but you're also really trying to think about what is happening for the people that you're communicating to and what their situation is like now and how you can best show up for them.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a fun and silly question that you may or may not be prepared for, and that is being a communicator and teaching people how to communicate for a living. How does that work in your household? What would your husband say about you being a communications expert?
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm married to an English teacher, a high school English teacher, and I would describe him as the more silent type. So he communicates out of necessity and direct, and no extra fluff. And I'm a little bit more fluffy when it comes to, especially my interpersonal communication. I tend to I want to read the situation. Let's have a bigger conversation about this. Let's talk more about it. And he's like, I've already thought about it, and here's what I have to say. And I think it's, in the household, try to remember the same principles of communication is here's what my objectives are, but I have to understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to do too, and your style and what you are comfortable with, and trying to create that space. And sometimes I think I'm okay at it, and other times I think I try to bring people to my side in the way I like to communicate and the way I like to do it. And I try to remember that. It's just I feel like it's kind of like the love languages when you think about it. Like everyone's, after that book came out, a lot more receptive to oh, you must be, the kind of person who likes to give and receive love with gifts or this or that. And the same with communication. I think we don't necessarily know our preferred communication styles because we don't think about it a lot, or how we like people to communicate with us, or how we like to communicate with people. But the same idea, if you like a certain way and someone else doesn't, it's good to be aware of that, because there's going to be feelings there too. I know I have people in my life who just aren't phone people, and I get on the phone and talk for an hour, but I know they're going to be I gotta go. And I can't read that as oh, they're mad at me or they don't like me or whatever. It's they just don't like that channel of, it doesn't feel natural to them, and they're not going to show up in that way. So yeah, in the household, I would say I tend to just want everyone to talk about their feelings and let's talk about our day. Right. Sometimes that does not go over super well in my house, and like, I'll talk about it when I'm ready. I'm not feeling it right now, and that's okay. So yeah, I have some learning to do, and the home space is a great place to do that too, to just say, read the room. What are people, what are all these styles, all these dynamics that come together in an intense place? And there's a lot of learning to do there. So.
Well, I'm glad I'm not alone. The book you referenced, I think, was the five love languages, and it's a great relationship book. It's been out for several years, but it's definitely one I would recommend. And I tend to let my guard down at home, right? Like I just want to relax. I don't even want to think professionally. I just want to just relax and just enjoy being in my home and with my wife. And there are days she goes, I can't believe that you speak for a living. Did you hear what just came out of your mouth? And so I was curious, with you being in communications and a professional and an expert in that, if you had a similar thing. So yeah, thank you for sharing with us. Yeah. So I would like to know, what does success mean to you? You've been in business now for 5 years. Did I get that right?
Yep.
And you lead a lot of successful people. And I didn't prep you for this question, but I'm just curious, because people define success in so many different ways. What does success mean to Bridget?
Yeah. So success, I think there was a quote out there about it of some sort. It's like, doing what you love, surrounded by the people you love, in a place that you love, and living your truth, your authentic truth day to day as much as you possibly can. That's success to me. And so in business, for me, that looks like really working with clients that I love and their messages, and feeling compelled to share their stories because I believe in what they're doing and I believe in their stories. And kind of the same at home, just empowering people to share their stories, because I see so much potential out there for people to make a difference through communication and through expressing even more in their authentic way what they can do and offer to the world, and making an impact with other people, because we're all kind of in this, world together, although, separated by whatever means we may be separated at the moment. We're all here together, and we all have a way to support or show up for someone else. And I think if we remember that, just not knowing that one thing that you say or one thing that you do to show up for someone else can mean the world to somebody. So being intentional about that and helping people think through that, so that they can really shine their brightest here with the time that they have here. It's just, there's things that get in our way. Some of it is lack of confidence or confusion about our message, or just feeling like we don't have something to say or something to share. But I don't think that's our natural state. Like, I think we do, when we are in our flow and in our zone, realize that we're so much more empowered than we give ourselves credit for sometimes, and helping people realize that is what makes me feel successful. And so that's, for me, that's true. And I think it's different for different people, what makes you feel successful, but finding that has been a true blessing, and is what makes me feel, despite whatever external things look like, that's what makes me feel successful. So.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And you said help people shine their brightest. And I'm curious now, is that where the name of the company came from? As I know, Burnham, a part of your name, Bright and Burn Bright, it matched so well. How did you come up with that? And tell us the true meaning behind the name.
Sure. Yeah. So I had always, I think, wanted to be an entrepreneur on some level. And I started working for an agency out of college. And then I went into corporate, and had always just had this idea in the back of my mind that I would have this business where I would do this especially for messages that I resonated with, because I've always been really excited about different brands that are doing really cool things, and wanting to put my power in thought behind that. And so as I was getting ready to go out on my own, there's a lot of hesitation about, do I leave the comfort of, being underneath another brand and doing this stuff and go out on my own? And, it was just playing around with ideas of like, how would I brand myself and what would I be about, and doing those mini branding exercises for myself. I thought about, you know, my name and also that idea of just shining and being really kind of brilliant in the marketplace and what that looks like for brands. And that's kind of how the idea came about. And then, yeah, I love the idea and the name so much. Then I was like, I have to go make this happen. You know, this is really, it got me excited. So I've held on to it and kind of built from there.
Oh, that's awesome. It's always fun to learn. For me, the name was the hardest part. I mean, like when we were developing AGC Accelerated Global Connections, I had I had a 5-year business plan written before I even had the name. And I bought so many domains, thinking, oh, this could be it, but I'm not sure, you know, this could be it, but I'm really not sure. And then finally we resonated on a name, but that was the hardest part for me. So it's always fun to know when something comes natural and then you build off of the name. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think it can go either way. And I've you know, done different things where it comes less naturally too. Like, oh, what do you call it? I get the essence of this, but like, what do you put the name around it or whatever, or the visual behind it? And there's so many ways to come up with that. And that is fun too, I think, to brainstorm at like the logo and I really love the branding stuff. So yeah.
Well, at one point you used the word networking in this last 30 minutes. And, you know, we run a networking organization, but I chose to not put networking in the name, Accelerated Global Connections. And I'm actually thankful, especially with this epidemic, that I didn't put networking in the name, because networking I always think face to face when I think networking. And so I'm curious for you, in networking, AGC, Accelerated Global Connections, because you've been a speaker, you're now a podcast guest, but you're also a member. And I remember the day that you joined AGC. I remember it because you were a speaker that day and you walked off the stage and you were meeting people and having conversations, and you came over and said, hey, I want to be a member of this too. Why? We have lots of speakers, and some say yes. That's happened, by the way, a handful of times, and you become celebrities inside AGC, by the way, because people go, oh, I saw your podcast. Oh, I saw you on the stage at AGC, or I watched your talk on YouTube. But what was it for you? What attracted you to say, hey, this is where I want to spend some of my time?
Yeah, and to be honest, yeah, it was kind of the evolution of having, I had connected with some members of the group beforehand and felt really already that like, this is a really cool space to show up. And I would love to be a speaker here, and honored to be in front of these people, you know, to share any knowledge or insight that I can with this group of people who are, you know, warm and friendly, and just felt that immediately from being connected to, you know, your leadership team and part of your group. And then, yeah, I just felt like the intention, I think you can feel the intention behind what you're doing. And I say that all the time about people who are asking about different networking groups or groups that they're a part of, is that I feel, Trev, for you, and the intention behind what you're putting into the group and how people are resonating with it, and how it just really speaks to what we all want to be a part of, which is, you know, really authentic connections, you know, sharing that space where we're all learning together. I just loved the way that it was set up to empower that kind of connected learning together and natural connections and, you know, friendliness and all the channels and opportunity that are involved in being a bigger part of it. So I think more than anything for me, it was just feeling your energy and your team's energy around the vision for creating what you're creating. And I really believe in it too. And so to be a part of it just felt like natural, like, yes, what's next? What else can I do? And that's kind of the road I've been on with you guys, is just, yeah, I believe in what you're doing. I'm excited about your vision for connecting people, and the giving back part was huge for me too. Just that was on your heart, and that's part of your model was so awesome to me too. So yeah, I think, you know, we're all making decisions about our, you know, we have so many places to invest your time and your marketing money and all that kind of stuff. But
sure.
all about that alignment of the people. It's so important to align with the group and the people and what the group is about. And so that was, for me, it was a really pretty easy decision after meeting you guys and after hearing more about the group to just jump right in and be connected.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I've always felt like everything that we're doing inside AGC is not just networking. We're truly building a community. And if you're watching the video behind me, it says Community Network Global Impact, and you may not be able to see all of it, but it is that is our it's our mission to create a community network that has a global impact, and even accelerating that in today's virtual meeting space. So, Bridget, I want to say thank you for being a guest on the show. You're fantastic. It's just, the time just blew by, and we got so many nuggets. I got a whole page of notes over here, and I'm curious from you, if someone's listening, they're watching, what is your ideal client? And then how do we find you afterwards?
Sure. Yeah. So my ideal client is, somebody who really feels that this is their time to go out there bigger with their message, to make a bigger impact with their message. And they're just maybe not quite sure, is their brand message on point? Do they feel like they want to have that validated and crystal clear? And then also putting, their solid plan together so they can go ahead and execute and get out there. That's the process I love helping people through. And I have programs to do that. So basically working with me one-on-one to craft your message, to make sure you have it to a place where you really believe in it, and then have your plan of going out in the world and making sure that's in alignment with you and your audience, and then going out there and supporting you through execution to make sure you're really out there shining bright above your competition, above everyone. So that's what I would love. Anyone who's feeling passionate and connected to that idea and wants to work together, that's who I'd love to connect with, just to learn more about your business and what you're doing in the world. I love people, as we mentioned. So any kind of connection of people who want to reach out and who resonate and who feel like, we have something in common, would love to hear from you. And you can reach me at my, all my contact info is on my website, burnbrightcom.com.
All right, guys, you heard it here. You watched it here with Bridget from Burn Bright Communications, and find her at burnbright.com. So thank you for being a guest. I want to speak now to our audience that's watching and listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving us this last 35 minutes. You guys are just absolutely amazing. Thank you for subscribing. The best thing that I can ask you to do is to share us with others. If you got good value here today, if you pulled away some nuggets, if there were some things that you're like, I have a full page of notes too, please tell others and share and subscribe. And let's expand this audience. Let's expand this community network with a global impact. And we can do that through our podcast. So thank you again for tuning in. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bridget, for being here.
Thanks, Travis.
This podcast was produced by Elation Studios. Go to www.elationstudios.co to learn more. Elation Studios. Discover your voice, clarify your vision, build your life.